Uyo was a city that glowed with ambition, where new estates rose every few months, cafes buzzed with soft music, and everyone seemed to be chasing something big. In the heart of this vibrant city, along the serene stretch of Shelter Afrique, stood a mansion that caught every eye that passed by. The house was a masterpiece. Tall glass windows, modern architecture, and a small garden that bloomed with roses and hibiscus. Parked in front was a shiny black Range Rover beside a white Mercedes-Benz GLA. It was the kind of home that made people slow down their cars just to stare. That house belonged to Eno Emmanuel, a young woman in her late 20s who had become something of a mystery in the neighborhood. Eno was the kind of woman you couldn't ignore. Her skin had the rich glow of someone who took good care of herself, and her fashion sense was effortlessly classy. She wore elegant heels, always smelled like expensive perfume, and had a calm confidence that made people turn when she entered a room. But in a city like Uyo, where people loved gist more than the news, success came with stories. "Na men dey fund her life," one woman said as she arranged tomatoes by the roadside. "Look at her car. Ordinary lady in her 20s can't make that kind of money honestly," another replied. "She's too fine to be struggling. All these slay queens, they know their way." A man laughed as others nodded in agreement. And just like that, the name slay queen stuck. But Eno didn't care. She had heard words before. She had learned that when you rise faster than people expect, they will always try to explain your success with their own imagination. The truth was, Eno was a real estate broker, one of the youngest and most successful in the city. Her day usually started before dawn. By 5 a.m., her soft jazz alarm would play and she'd stretch, pray quietly, and sip on lemon water as she planned her day. Then she'd sit by her desk, open her emails, land documents, and client messages. Her phone rarely stopped ringing. Investors from Lagos, Akwa Ibom indigenes abroad looking for land, and developers who trusted her to close big deals. Eno had built her empire through grit and grace. Just 3 years ago, she was an ordinary university graduate with no clear direction. She tried a few jobs, none paid well. Then one day she attended a free real estate seminar that changed her life. She listened to the speaker talk about property appreciation, the power of location, and how land never depreciates. Something clicked in her heart that day. With nothing but determination, she started learning everything about real estate, from property documentation to negotiation and marketing. She began promoting estate lands on social media, posting pictures, and talking about upcoming developments in Uyo. Her first client was a young banker who bought 2 plots around Airport Road. That deal earned her a commission of 300,000 naira, the first real money she ever made on her own. From then on, she never looked back. She reinvested her profits in ads, built connections with estate developers, and mastered the art of closing deals. Slowly, she grew from selling plots to individuals to handling large group purchases. In less than 3 years, Eno became one of the top-performing brokers for several real estate firms. Her hard work built the life people now gossiped about: the beautiful home, the luxury car, the designer clothes. But behind all the glamour was a woman who worked day and night, who faced rejection from clients, walked under the sun inspecting lands, and learned from every mistake. Sometimes, as she sat in traffic on Oron Road or watched the skyline of Uyo light up at night, she would smile to herself. She knew many people didn't believe her story, and that was fine. Results speak louder than explanations. One Saturday, she invited a few young women to her home for a small mentorship class. They came, expecting gossip and glamour, but left inspired. "Enu, how did you start?" one of them asked timidly. She smiled. "I started with faith, a phone, and consistency. You see, real estate is not about selling land. It's about vision. If you can see development before others do, you'll make money others can't imagine." She told them about how Airport Road transformed within 2 years, how early investors tripled their profits, and how real estate had funded her dreams. That evening, when the ladies left, Eno stood by her balcony overlooking the quiet street. The city lights twinkled below like stars scattered on earth. She took a deep breath and whispered, "They can call me whatever they like. I know who I am." She was not a slay queen. She was a queen who slayed in real estate. And though the city gossiped, she knew one thing for sure: Uyo had only just begun to see what she was capable of.
And friendly tone. The Monday morning sun in Uyo was warm and golden, peeking through Eno's white curtains as she prepared for a property inspection. She dressed sharply, a cream suit, gold earrings, and nude heels that clicked confidently on the marble floor. On her wrist was a smartwatch, and her sleek ponytail framed her glowing face. She was heading to an estate site along the airport road for a client viewing. Her assistant Ima was already waiting outside beside the Range Rover. "Good morning, ma," Ima greeted, opening the car door. "Morning, Ima. Do we have the documents ready for the airport road plots?" "Yes, ma. All signed and filed." Eno smiled and got in. As they drove through the city, billboards advertising new estates dotted the road: TLE City Estate, Harmony Gardens, Golden Acres, and Eno couldn't help but feel proud. She had been part of several successful sales that put those names out there. The real estate market in Uyo was growing fast, especially around Airport Road. Investors from Lagos and Port Harcourt were rushing in because they'd heard the place was the next big thing. Eno knew every corner of that road, from the roundabout near the stadium to the land stretching behind the Army Forces Estate. She had sold over 40 plots in that area in the last year alone. But while she was busy building her name in the industry, the city was busy building another kind of story about her. Across town, in a salon where women discussed everything except what concerned them, her name came up again. "That Eno girl, please, don't tell me she's only selling land. That kind of house she lives in no be land money," said one woman as her hair was being braided. "I heard she travels to Lagos often. Now there she meets her investors," she added with a knowing smirk. They laughed loudly, enjoying the spice of their own assumptions. People loved stories that made success look suspicious. Later that day, as Eno returned from the inspection, her phone rang. The name on the screen made her pause: in Newborn. It had been almost 4 years since she heard from her old friend. They'd grown up together, studied at the same university, and even shared dreams of owning businesses one day. But after school, Ini moved to Lagos and they lost touch. "Hello, Ini," Eno said cheerfully. "Eno baby. Girl, I'm back in Uyo. I saw your billboard at Plaza. Madam Realtor herself. Please, I must see you today." They agreed to meet at a rooftop restaurant that evening. When Eno arrived, the city lights were glittering below like fireflies. Ini was already seated, wearing a bright red dress and her usual big smile. "Ah, look at you," Ini exclaimed, hugging her tightly. "We use most talked about slay queen," she teased. Eno laughed softly, rolling her eyes. "Don't tell me you believe that geese too." "My dear, that's all people talk about. You're trending even in Lagos geese groups," Ini said, half joking, half curious. Eno sipped her juice and smiled calmly. "Let them talk. At least they're helping me advertise for free." But honestly, Ini leaned in, lowering her voice. "I know you too well to think you'd leave off anyone. So tell me, what's really going on?" And for the first time in a long while, Eno opened up about her journey. She told Ini about the rejections, the long days under the sun, the endless phone calls with skeptical clients, and the joy of helping people on land. "Real estate changed my life," Eno said, her eyes glowing. "It's not magic, it's knowledge, patience, and the courage to start small. People just don't see the process, only the result." Ini listened quietly, her earlier teasing replaced with admiration. "Wow, Eno, you're really doing big things. I'm proud of you." They talked for hours, laughing about old memories and sharing dreams. But as they left the restaurant, a man sitting nearby secretly took a picture of Eno, her car, her outfit, everything. By the next day, the photo was on a gossip blog with the headline, "Uyo's young slay queen seen on a date with mystery woman after returning from Lagos. Sources say new business deal involved." The comment section was wild. "Na so she dey run her real estate business. She just came back from a trip, money full ground. Fine girl, but we know the truth. Eno saw the post later that night. For a moment, she felt a sting, not because of the lies, but because of how quick people were to believe them. But instead of anger, she smiled. She had a rule: never fight with rumors, just grow bigger than them. She closed the blog page and opened her business analytics instead. 5 new clients had filled her inquiry form that evening. Perfect, she whispered. Let's turn gossip into gold. As she lay in bed, the city outside was still buzzing. Somewhere, people were talking about her again. But this time, she didn't mind. Because while they wasted breath on gossip, she was busy building an empire brick by brick. Tomorrow, another deal awaited. And for Eno, that was the only story that truly mattered.
Friendly tone. The morning after the gossip blog post, Uyo's air felt different. Lighter for some, heavier for others. But for Eno, it was just another day to make things happen. She had learned early in business that the louder people talk, the more eyes you attract. And in real estate, visibility was everything. So instead of deleting or responding to the gossip, she took a bold step. That afternoon, she posted a photo on Instagram, standing in front of a new estate billboard, wearing a simple white shirt and jeans, holding a land document. Her caption read, "People will always talk. Just make sure your results talk louder. Real estate isn't noise, it's wealth in motion. Hashtag Uyo Realtor, hashtag Women in Real Estate, hashtag TLCT Estate." The post blew up. Some people laughed, others clapped. But among the hundreds of comments and reposts, one message stood out from a verified account. "Good afternoon, Miss Eno. I'm interested in investing in Uyo Real Estate. Can we talk?" The message was from Mr. Anthony, a Lagos-based businessman known for developing small shopping complexes in emerging cities. He had seen her post because it was shared by someone he followed. By evening, they were on a video call. "Miss Eno," he began, "I must say, I admire your composure. I saw what people were saying online, but instead of reacting, you marketed yourself. That's smart." Eno smiled politely. "Thank you, sir. I believe in turning noise into opportunity." "Good," he said. "I've been looking for a capable broker to help me secure 15 acres along Airport Road. I plan to develop a commercial mini-hub, shopping spaces, apartments, and offices. Can you handle that?" Eno's heart skipped. Deals of that scale were rare, but she remained calm. "Yes, sir, that's within my area of expertise." "All right," he replied. "Send me a proposal tomorrow. Let's see if we can start business." After the call, Eno sat quietly for a while. A slow smile spread across her face. What others intended for mockery had opened a new door. That night, she worked late, researching suitable lands, checking documents, and preparing a clean proposal. She contacted a surveyor, her lawyer, and a few estate developers she trusted. By morning, she had a full plan ready. 3 suitable sites with their coordinates, market value, and development potential. When she emailed the proposal to Mr. Anthony, he replied within an hour. "Impressive work, Miss Eno. I'll be in Uyo this weekend. Schedule site visits." The weekend came faster than she expected. Saturday morning, Eno met Mr. Anthony and his team at the Ibom Icon Hotel. He was tall, in his early 40s, and had the confident air of someone who had made money and lost some too. He shook her hand firmly. He said, "I have heard you are the best here." "I try to be," Eno replied, smiling professionally. They spent the day driving around different sites. Eno explained each property like a seasoned consultant, talking about land titles, proximity to the airport, government plans for expansion, and the projected returns in 5 years. She didn't just sell land, she sold vision. At one point, as she stood under the bright sun explaining trend development, Mr. Anthony turned to his assistant and whispered, "She knows her stuff. She's not like the others." By the end of the inspection, he was impressed. "Miss Eno," he said, "I'll take the second option, the 15 acres near the new MRO facility.
"Send me the documentation. I'll make the first payment by Monday." That deal alone was worth millions in commission. As she drove home that evening, Eno felt a quiet joy, not because of the money, but because the very gossip that was meant to shame her had led a serious investor to her doorstep. She parked in her driveway, stepped out, and looked at her reflection in the car window. Her eyes gleamed with confidence. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. Later that night, she called Ini to share the news. "Girl," Ini screamed over the phone, "you see, God just used their gossip to advertise you." Eno laughed. "That's why I never argue with small minds. Every noise can become marketing if you handle it wisely." They talked for a while, and after the call, Ini opened her notebook, her dream planner. On the first page, she wrote, "Lesson of the week. When people misunderstand your purpose, don't waste energy explaining. Keep walking, your results will do the talking." She smiled at the words and closed the book gently. Outside, the city lights shimmered. Uyo was growing, and so was she. But what Eno didn't know was that her rise had started attracting attention from bigger players, and not all of them were friendly. But for now, she allowed herself to rest. Her name, once dragged through gossip, was beginning to command respect in business meetings. And in the quiet of her elegant room, she whispered with gratitude, "Real estate didn't just make me rich, it made me strong."
The next week in Uyo was unusually busy for Eno. Her phone barely stopped ringing. The deal with Mr. Anthony had stirred excitement across the city's real estate circle. 15 acres wasn't a small project. Developers whispered her name in meetings, agents envied her growing reputation, and clients began to take her more seriously. But as with every success, admiration came hand in hand with envy. One Tuesday morning, while sipping her coffee and reviewing client emails, Ima, her assistant, rushed into the office. "Madam, you need to see this," she said, holding out her phone. On the screen was a social media post from a rival broker named Ekemini Paul. He was older, loud, and known for taking shortcuts in business. His post read, "Be careful who you trust in this real estate game. Some brokers are packaging themselves online but selling fake lands to Lagos investors. Shine your eyes." The comment section was filled with gossipers who immediately linked it to Eno. "Now that slay queen he's talking about. She's everywhere these days. Maybe it's true. Her time go soon finish." Eno stared at the post quietly. Her expression was unreadable. Ima was worried. "Madam, should we respond? This man is trying to spoil your name." Eno shook her head. "No need. Let him talk. I've learned something. When you argue with noise, you lose focus. Let's work." But in private, she knew the damage could spread fast. Uyo was a small city. Reputations traveled faster than facts. If potential investors began to doubt her, she could lose everything she had built. So, instead of fighting on social media, Eno chose strategy. She reached out to Mr. Anthony, explaining the rumors and assuring him that her lands were verified and government approved. Then she sent him digital copies of the survey plans, title documents, and verifications from the Ministry of Lands. He replied within the hour, "Thank you, Eno. I've cross-checked everything. You're legit. Don't mind jealous people." That message gave her a bit of peace. But the problem wasn't over. 2 days later, when Eno visited the land office to finalize paperwork for the 15-acre deal, she was told that another broker had filed a competing claim on the same land, Ekemini's farm. It was a deliberate move to frustrate her deal. Eno felt her stomach tighten. "Excuse me, madam," she asked the officer politely. "Who filed the claim?" The officer sighed. "It's that Ekemini man. He says the land was first allocated to one of his clients." Eno clenched her jaw but maintained her composure. "All right, I'll be back with my lawyer." Outside, the sun was scorching, but her mind was colder than ice. She knew exactly what was happening. Ekemini had connections, old bureaucrats who could easily delay paperwork to favor his side. But Eno wasn't new to challenges. She had faced rejection, gossip, and doubt before. This was just another test, one that required patience and wisdom. That evening, she called her lawyer, Barrister Ekpo Emi, a calm and meticulous man who had handled several of her previous deals. "Barrister, someone is trying to block the airport road property. I need us to act fast." By the next morning, they were at the ministry again, armed with every legal document, from survey plans to transaction receipts. Barrister Ekpo Emi laid everything neatly on the table. "Sir," he told the land officer firmly, "our client, Miss Eno Emmanuel, made her payment and documentation before any rival claim. Here are the timestamps and verification from your office." The officer reviewed the documents and nodded slowly. It's true. Her submission came first. The other file came 2 days later." Eno exhaled quietly. Later that day, she received an email confirming that her claim was officially approved. The land was now tied to Mr. Anthony's investment and to her commission. It was victory, but a quiet one. Still, she couldn't shake the frustration. That evening, as she sat on her balcony overlooking the city lights, Ini called. "Girl, I heard what happened. That Ekemini man is something else." Enu clucked softly. "He tried to ruin me, but he only made me stronger. Sometimes enemies are part of your growth plan." "What do you mean?" Ini asked. "Well," Enu replied thoughtfully, "if he hadn't tried to block me, I wouldn't have double-checked my systems or improved my legal backup. Now I know how to protect every deal before it even starts." They both laughed. Before hanging up, Ini said, "You're really turning everything into a lesson, Eno. I like that." Eno replied with a grin, "Life is business school. You either learn or lose." That night, she updated her notebook again. Lesson of the week: never let jealousy distract you. The people trying to pull you down are already below you. She closed the book and whispered, "Let them keep talking. I'll keep closing deals." Unbeknownst to her, Ekemini wasn't done yet. He was already plotting another move, one that could test not just her business skills, but her character and faith. But Eno, she was ready. She had weathered storms before, and this time she had something even stronger than ambition. She had wisdom. And in New York's rising skyline, her name was fast becoming more than just talk. It was becoming a brand.
The air in Oyo felt unusually tense that week. The rains had stopped, and the city was back to its restless rhythm. Cars honking, hawkers shouting, and billboards flashing new estate offers at every junction. But for Eno, the buzz around her name hadn't stopped either. After the land dispute with Ekemini, whispers continued in real estate circles. Some praised her resilience, others claimed she was just lucky. But Ekemini wasn't done. The man couldn't stand the idea of a woman in her 20s winning deals he had chased for months. He wanted her humiliated. One Thursday morning, as Ena was reviewing her client list, Ima walked in smiling. "Madam, there's a new client who wants to buy 6 plots near the airport expansion site. He says he's a businessman from Port Harcourt." Ena's eyes lit up. 6 plots? That's serious. Did he say how soon he wants to buy? "Yes, ma. He said he's ready to pay once he confirms the documents are clean." "Perfect," Ena said, already planning the site inspection. "Schedule a meeting with him tomorrow. We'll meet at the cafe by Bomb Tropicana." The next day, Ena arrived early. She looked professional. Navy blue jumpsuit, silver earrings, and a simple wristwatch. Confidence radiated from her as she reviewed the documents again. Minutes later, a tall man in his 40s walked in. He introduced himself as Mr. Gabriel, an investor looking to expand his business in Akwa Ibom. His smile was friendly, his tone respectful. "I've heard about your success, Miss Eno. That's why I came straight to you. I want something solid, not stories." Eno smiled. "You're in safe hands. The properties I handle are fully verified and safe to invest in." They discussed the plots in detail, and Eno gave him a tour the next day. Everything went smoothly, or so she thought. 3 days later, she received a call from an unknown number. "Good afternoon, Miss Eno. This is Inspector Jonah from the CID."
You are requested to report to our office immediately regarding a fraud case. Her heart skipped. Fraud? What fraud, sir? You'll find out when you arrive, the officer replied before ending the call. Within an hour, Eno was at the police station, her pulse racing. She met Inspector Jonah, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes. Miss Eno, he began, flipping through a file. We received a petition that you sold 6 plots of land using forged documents to a client named Mr. Gabriel. He claims you collected a deposit of 5 million naira and disappeared. What? Eno exclaimed, shocked. That's impossible. I never collected any money from him. The inspector raised an eyebrow. Do you have proof? Of course, she said quickly, pulling out a tablet. Here are the WhatsApp messages, the emails, and inspection photos. I never sent him an account number or received any payment. We were still at a negotiation stage. The inspector went through the messages carefully, his expression softening. Interesting. This doesn't match his statement. At that moment, Eno understood. It was a setup, and only one person could be behind it. Ekemini. She remembered seeing him at the ministry a few days earlier, pretending to make a call near her car. Her instincts had whispered that he was plotting something. The inspector sighed and closed the file. Miss Eno, from what I see here, this looks like a false report, but you'll need to write a statement and provide any transaction evidence. I will, sir. Thank you, Eno replied calmly. After giving her statement, she stepped outside and called her lawyer, Barrister Ekpo. Within hours, he had contacted the police and demanded an investigation into the fake petition. 2 days later, the truth came out. Mr. Gabriel wasn't a real investor. He was one of Ekemini's associates, a small-time agent bribed to file the false complaint. But Eno's professionalism and detailed record-keeping saved her. She had documentation for every client interaction. No shortcuts, no informal deals. When the police traced the false petition, Ekemini's name surfaced. Though he tried to deny involvement, the evidence pointed towards him. He was fined for false accusation and warned strictly. For Eno, it was a painful but powerful lesson. That weekend, as she sat in her quiet living room, sipping tea and gazing out the window, she reflected on everything. Uyo was calm again, the city lights twinkling, cars gliding smoothly, and the hum of generators blending with night sounds. In a call to check in, "Babe, I heard what happened. I was so worried. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Eno said softly. "I just realized something in it. When your success starts shaking people's comfort zones, they'll do anything to pull you down. But you can't let them." "What will you do next?" Ine asked. "I'll keep winning, but smarter this time. From now on, every deal passes through my lawyer and accountant. No shortcuts, no trust without proof." She picked up her notebook and wrote her weekly reflection. Lesson of the week: the higher you rise, the more traps appear. But integrity and documentation are your strongest shields. Then she smiled to herself. Ekemini had tried to destroy her, but instead, he had strengthened her systems, her resolve, and her reputation. A week later, she received a surprise, an email from a property magazine based in Lagos. "Dear Miss Eno, we've been following your growth in the Uyo real estate market. Your story of resilience and professionalism has inspired many. We'd love to feature you in our next edition titled Young Women Building Africa's Real Estate Future." Eno stared at the message in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes. What her enemies meant for evil had turned into a national spotlight. She whispered to herself, God, you are too intentional. And as the moonlight poured through her window, Eno realized something powerful. Success wasn't about avoiding challenges. It was about turning every storm into a stepping stone.
Monday morning in Uyo felt fresh and hopeful, the perfect mirror of Eno's spirit. As she checked her emails, a headline made her freeze. Feature approved. Young women building Africa's real estate future. Miss Eno Udo. She screamed and Nima rushed in. Madam, they've accepted it? Yes, my story will be in a national magazine. When the issue dropped a week later, Eno's face graced the glossy cover in a cream suit beside a miniature estate model. From hustle to houses, how Eno Udo built her real estate empire in her 20s. The article told her journey, the struggles, late-night studies, and the scandal she overcame with integrity. It blew up online. Suddenly, neighbors who once gossiped now greeted her with respect. Her name became a brand. Then came the opportunities. Investors emailed, politicians invited her to speak, and the biggest of all, an invitation to speak at the Ibom Real Estate Forum, a stage she once only admired from afar. She prepared carefully. On the event day at Ibom Icon Hotel, she walked in with quiet confidence. When she stepped on stage, she spoke with clarity. People doubted me. They said success required shortcuts. I chose integrity. The hall erupted in applause. Reporters swarmed her afterwards. That night, as she relaxed on her balcony, a call came in from an unknown number. Good evening, Miss Eno. I'm Chief Otobo, chairman of Top City Developers. Your story impressed me. I would like to discuss a partnership on a major housing project. Eno agreed to meet. Staring at the city lights, she whispered, from gossip to greatness, this is just the beginning. What she didn't know was that the upcoming dinner would lead to the biggest opportunity of her career and the most dangerous choice of her life.
And friendly tone. The dinner night arrived sooner than Eno expected. She dressed in an emerald green gown and admired her reflection. Confident, elegant, powerful. Madam, you look like money itself, Ima said, amazed. Eno laughed. That's the goal. At Monty Suites, she was escorted to a private lounge where Chief Otobo waited. Tall, broad, dressed in a navy blue agbada, he greeted her warmly. Miss Eno, the woman shaking Uyo's real estate market. Dinner flowed with grilled fish, coconut rice, and meaningful conversation. Eno spoke boldly about land trends and development in Uyo. Chief Otobo listened with genuine admiration. You are sharp, he said. I want you to lead sales for a new 100-acre estate at Nwaniba Extension. Bring in buyers for 40% of the plots in 6 months, and you will earn at least 80 million naira. 80 million, the number rang in her head. But then he added, we're still waiting for one last government approval. Nothing serious. We'll start pre-sales where the paperwork finishes. Eno's smile softened. Inside, she froze. Pre-sales without full approval? That was dangerous. Sir, is this safe? She asked. My dear, this is how big players move. Trust me. She didn't trust that. At home, Ima frowned after hearing the details. Madam, be careful. No approval is no approval. She spent the night thinking. She wrote in her journal, not every golden door leads to peace. The next day, she sent the documents to her lawyer, Barrister Ikpo. 3 days later, he called with shocking news. That land is under partial government acquisition, legal issues everywhere, walk away. And she did. Sir, she told Chief Otobo, I can't proceed until everything is legally cleared. He paused before replying. Opportunities don't come twice. Neither does integrity, she said. 3 months later, headlines announced the Nwaniba Extension project was under investigation for illegal land allocation. Eno whispered, thank you, God.
She had turned down 80 million, but saved her name, her peace, and her future. And without knowing it, her wise decision had just unlocked a greater destiny waiting on the horizon.
6 months after turning down Chief Otobo's offer, Ino had grown into a stronger, more respected version of herself. She no longer chased opportunities. They now chased her. One morning, Ima rushed in excitedly. "Madam, email from Lagos." Ino opened it and froze. Urban Haven Realtors International. They want a partnership. Urban Haven was one of West Africa's biggest real estate firms. A week later, she flew to Lagos. At their Ikoyi headquarters, she met Mrs. Adebayo, the director of partnerships. "Miss Ino, your integrity inspired our board. We want you to head our new Urban Haven Akwa Ibom project as regional director." Ino gasped. Equity, full support, and full control. It was everything she had prayed for. Back at her hotel that night, Ini texted, "Proud of you. You proved integrity still pays." Ino smiled. "It's God. He rewrote my story." When she returned to Uyo, she gathered her small team. "We are partnering with Urban Haven. We are going global." Cheers erupted. Ima nearly cried. Ino continued, "And we are opening a real estate academy, free for the first students, especially young women. They must learn they don't need shortcuts to succeed." Months later, the academy became a reality. Ino taught her students personally, sharing her knowledge, her scars, and her victories. Her story became their fuel. One evening, after class, she sat alone watching the sunset. She remembered the gossip, the rejection, the small office where she started, and she smiled. God had turned it all into purpose. She wrote her final words in her old notebook. "Real success is measured by the lives you lived and the peace you carry." God turned my story into a message. The next morning, The Guardian featured her again. Ino Udo, from gossip to global influence. Quote under her photo, "When you walk with integrity, even your silence becomes a testimony." At sunset, standing on the balcony of her new estate, Ino whispered, "This is the legacy I prayed for." From gossip to greatness, she had become a queen of value, vision, and victory.